Following the tutorial videos on the creation of the monitoring plan and an overview of the workflow functionalities, let's now get familiarized with the content of the monitoring plan. From the My Fleet page, note that the option Monitoring Plan, Create, is no longer available in the action menu because the monitoring plan was already created. Instead, we can now edit, clone or delete. We select Edit. By default, the system takes us to the Monitoring Plan Particulars tab. Here we should confirm and amend as necessary the date of the creation of the monitoring plan. The monitoring plan status is an internal variable controlled by the system, depending on the monitoring plan situation. This has been already explained in the tutorial video on the workflow. The content of the monitoring plan is well specified in the Annex 1 of the Commission Implementing Regulation 2016-1927. As per paragraph 1 of Article 2, companies shall draw up the monitoring plan using a template corresponding to the model set out in the annex. Companies willing to use THETIS-MRV template for the monitoring plan will benefit from some enrichments which we will address in this video. Let's browse Annex 1 and find those elements in the system. Part A. Revision Record Sheet. Revisions of the monitoring plan can be generated in the Monitoring Plan Revision tab. Generating a revision is like taking a snapshot of the current content of the plan. In our case, the plan is on draft. If we would like to make a version now, we need to click Generate Monitoring Plan Document Version. The version number will be assigned automatically and incrementally by the system. Reference date will be the date and time of the action. The status is also taken automatically considering the phase of the workflow process. Additional notes explaining changes of the version can be inserted in the observation text. Once we click to save, a new entry will be displayed in the revision table. Button actions will allow to manage this record, but, more important, will allow to download the monitoring plan. Please note that this PDF file is the official version of the monitoring plan, although, in our case, still on draft. Do not confuse with the document we get by clicking on Print to PDF, where we get all the content from all tabs which are not all part of the monitoring plan. To recap, Print to PDF is used to have a PDF version of all the tabs you see. Actions, Download, will give you the official monitoring plan of the respective version. Part B, Table B1, Identification of the ship. Ship particulars are visible in the Ship tab. Once you create a monitoring plan, the system fetches the current ship particulars from the ship page. However, you may define ship particulars different from the ship data. This could be important if you are entering a monitoring plan from the past, and some ship particulars could have meanwhile been amended. On the other hand, if you have created the monitoring plan and later you will update ship particulars, you may use the button Update from Ship Data to reflect those amendments here in the monitoring plan. Part B, Table B2, Company Information. In the Company tab, you will see the company which you have assigned to the ship. You may edit this content and select any other company that you have previously added in a config menu. In case you need to amend the particulars of the company, remember that this should be done in the config menu. However, remember that changes in company details will be assumed in all monitoring plans where the company is appointed. Part B, Table B3, Emission Sources and Fuel Types Used. You will find this table in tab Emission Sources. However, the system presents this table in combination with other elements from other tables which offer a more comprehensive identification of the emission sources and related information. Let's add one entry in the table to better identify the content. Click to add emission source. Select type and enter the name. Fill in the technical information. Indicate the potential fuels to be used. Select the monitoring methods as appropriate. Select the measuring equipments. At the moment this list is empty because we have not yet entered any measuring equipment. That will be done later on the Measuring Equipment tab. And in this lever of uncertainty, select as appropriate. As you have noted, in this record we have addressed more than one table from the Annex 1, with the advantage that a better correlation is achieved. We have Table B3. We have Table C2, C2.4, and C2.7. Part B, Table B4, Emission Factors. Emission factors for each fuel can be defined in the Fuel Type and Emission Factors tab. The system presents a data grid, where you can add as many records as necessary, one for each relevant fuel type. Let's add some records. For HFO we will consider the default emission factor. Method for determine the density of fuel bunkered can also be appointed. Let's add another fuel type. We select MDO, but in this case we want to make a correction in the emission factor. Therefore, in the factor reference field, we select defined by user. We amend the value as appropriate. We can specify the methodologies for determine the density and indicate also the method for determine the density of fuel bunkered. Part B, Table B5, Procedures regarding the completeness of emission sources. Noting the description of this procedure, you will find it in the Emission Sources tab. Any procedure can be edited by clicking on the Edit button under the respective table. Part C, Activity Data. Table C1 on exemptions. Noting that exemptions are related to navigation patterns, you will find this procedure in the Navigation tab. Note that in some tabs we will have a second level of tabs to better organize the content. Part C, Table C2.1, on Methods. As we have seen before, this content is already covered in the Emission Sources table. Part C, Table C2.2, on bunker and fuel in tanks. Noting that this content is related to fuel consumption, you will find this procedure in the Fuel Consumption tab. Right underneath, noting the same nature, you will find Table C2.3 on regular cross-checks. Part C, Table C2.4, on measurement instruments. The list of measurement equipments should be defined in the Measuring Equipment tab. Let's add 2 records as an example. Part C, Table C2.5, Procedures on Measurements. Noting that this content is related to measuring equipments, it is in the Related tab that you will find this procedure. Part C, Table C2.6, on Methods for Determination of Density. Noting that this content is related to fuel types and tanks, you will see this table reflected in 2 places. In the Fuel Types and Emission Factors tab, and in the Fuel Tanks tab. As we have covered the fuel types, let's now check the Fuel Tanks tab. When we add a fuel tank, you will note that we have a couple more fields. In fact, this record is also covering Table C2.4. Because we have already added measuring equipments in the Measuring Equipment tab, we can see them in this form. Part C, Table C2.7, on Uncertainty. As we have seen before, this content is already covered in the Emission Sources table. Part C, Table C2.8, on Quality Assurance of Measuring Equipments. Noting that this content is related to measuring equipment, you will find this procedure in the Measuring Equipment tab. For the rest of the content defined in the annex, it should be easy to locate it in the system. The best way to find a specific procedure on the system is to ask yourself, what is it about? Navigation? Cargo? fuel consumption, and then it should be easy to locate it in the respective tab. You will note that some procedures which are specific for some ship types may not be available if the ship is not of that type. However, one important note on Part D, related to data gaps. Instead of making a specific tab for data gaps, you will find several data gap sub-tabs organized per content. For instance, in the Navigation tab, you have a data gap sub-tab holding tables D2 on distance traveled and D4 on time spent at sea. Table D3 on cargo carried will be located in the data gap sub-tab under Cargo. To conclude, 2 comments on 2 tabs which are in the system and are not part of the monitoring plan. The Documents tab is to support the company in verifier work. Any relevant document related to the monitoring plan or its assessment may be uploaded here. And the Nonconformities tab, which can be used by the verifier in case the company and the verifier agree that they could log in the system findings for better follow-up and prompt actions. Once again, remember that this content is not shared with anyone else and that it is to be used on a voluntary basis.